I'm Maddie, and welcome to Beyond the A, where I interview JMC alumni who have graduated in these recent times. And today I have with me Dillon Thomas. Thanks for being on.
No, thank you. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be here. So just obviously first question, like, what do you do? When did you graduate CSU, and what do you do now?
Yeah, so it feels like yesterday, but at the same time, coming here to this interview on campus, I was reminded that it actually has been a while because I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember my way around campus.
Totally.
But I graduated 2014 from what was at the time JTC, which was Journalism and
Yes.
Technical Communication. A little bit of a rebranding
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's still like when you register on classes, it still says JTC.
Okay.
So it's like I kind of was like, wait, but I'm JMC. So
Yeah.
it's always just like, what is like why the
No,
rebrand?
that makes me happy that they still held on to something to make me
Yeah.
not feel completely old. So yeah, I graduated in 2014. I was here from 2010 to 2014, and then I went to work in Arkansas for 2
Okay.
years of all places. Worked for a CBS affiliate out there, and then I came back here at a rather young age. I got lucky for a job. Started here when I was like around 23, and it's been 10 years now. This October marks 10 years.
How was Fayetteville? I was looking
Yeah,
at, I was
oh,
stalking
yeah, I was
your
gonna say you did
LinkedIn
your
totally.
research. I love it.
totally was stalking your LinkedIn
That's good.
and I was like, oh, Fayetteville. I knew people who
Yeah.
went to University of
University of
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
So it was
Yeah.
just like, what was that like?
No, I love you did your homework. So when I was first moving there, I'd never had any ties to Arkansas. My first time being there was when I showed up with all my stuff,
Totally.
which is crazy now looking back at it to do. But at first, I fully admit when I didn't know anybody, it was kind of like, do I want to do this? Like maybe I want to quit. Like I don't know anyone here. I don't have any family here. I don't have any friends. I just work and go home. And then by the time I was leaving, got a job offer for my dream job in Denver, and I was
Yes.
trying to consider if I actually wanted to come back or not. So a quick answer to that is Fayetteville is actually really nice.
Totally.
Yeah.
How did you find your job at CBS Denver?
So networking, and a little more networking. What happened was back when I was in high school, I was in the yearbook program, and I sent some news tips to the locals TV stations about a story that I thought would be interesting. Only one replied, and it was what was at the time CBS 4 Denver, which is now CBS News Colorado. And they showed up, and then I was like, oh yeah, like this is interesting. And the reporter was like, would you ever want to shadow our main anchor? I was like, so yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I showed up and I shadowed the main anchor, who was Jim Beneman of CBS and CSU alumni. And he did CTV as well, I believe. And that was kind of the history for me. So I was like, this is what I want to do. So then when I came to CSU, I was doing CTV for all 4 years.
Nice.
And my sophomore going into junior year, I applied for an internship at CBS 4 and stayed in contact with everyone I met there.
Nice.
Wouldn't stop bugging them on social media. And then I went to Arkansas, and every single month that I was in Arkansas, I would send an email to the news director with my 3 favorite stories I did that month.
Oh, nice.
And I think the only reason he hired me is because he was sick of me sending him emails.
Honestly, that's how I am. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, like haven't heard from
That's a
you.
good thing. Yeah.
But I think like I never realized it until like recently when I was like getting internships, like how important
Yeah.
networking is. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to keep these connections. Like
Yeah.
it's so important that I have them. Like,
Especially in this career field.
yeah, I didn't really like, I know every year they're like, oh, the job market's awful, but like it's always awful every year. And so it's just more like having those connections
Yeah.
to like kind of vouch for you is just really nice.
Yeah. In this industry, sometimes it's not if you're the best candidate, it's who you know
Yeah.
that trusts you to know that you can become the best candidate.
Yeah, the personality almost.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. When you were applying for jobs, I mean, did you have your job in Fayetteville automatically lined up after graduation? Because I know a lot of students like
Yeah.
now don't have jobs lined up after graduation. So were you one of the lucky ones? Did it take you a
Yeah.
little bit? And like, what was it like applying for jobs back then versus like how
Yeah.
it looks now?
Yeah. So, great question, because technically I haven't applied for a job almost since I graduated, if you think about it, because
Fair.
like I was only gone for 2 years before I got this job. So, but what I did was I started applying in like January, February range. Like that's when I started sending out some
Yeah.
applications. And then by March I had an offer or two. I had 2 offers. So March range is when they started coming in, and they knew that I still needed to graduate.
Yeah.
So they were offering the job knowing they were gonna have to wait a few months.
Yeah.
And so I jumped at one of them and decided this is what was for me. And so I was fortunate that I graduated knowing what I was going to go do, and that I started my job 10 days after graduation.
Oh, wow. So you
yeah.
were like cap and gown and then
Yeah.
book it to Fayetteville.
Yep. May
Okay.
17th across the stage
Yeah.
here at CSU at Moby Arena. And then May 27th was my first day
Oh,
on
wow.
on
Okay.
air,
So
2014.
you had to pack up and go,
Yeah,
essentially.
pretty much.
Dang. Okay. So, I mean, like, how did CSU courses kind of help you navigate and find that job
Yeah.
after college? And like, I know you were in
Mhm.
CTV. Did you do any other departments at RMSMC? Like, how did that kind of college aspect kind of help you get where
Mhm.
you are today?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate to be an advisor back on campus now with
Yes.
CTV. And one thing that I keep telling the student journalists is that CSU sets you up to
Mhm.
where, in essence, you're having your first job here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are coming from other colleges that don't have the level of the journalism program that they have here at CSU.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people who are coming from colleges that maybe have the level of journalism program we have here at CSU, but they don't have the student media
Mhm.
that CSU has, where it's a lot of people are getting paid to do what they're doing as student media. So they're actually professional journalists,
Yeah.
technically. And you get that real world experience.
Mhm.
So yeah, remind me of the question real quick before I go on
Just
tangent.
kind of like how, like, your classes you
Yeah,
took at your
thank you.
time and just like what else
Yeah.
you did, like, because obviously RMSMC, that is your first job essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
that, like, obviously that's why it's there, is to set you
Yeah.
up. So like, but like the coursework, like what kind of
Exactly.
coursework did you take? And
So I remember I knew what I wanted to do. So
Mhm.
I was intentionally taking not just journalism courses, but specifically the ones that were TV
broadcasting,
broadcast
yeah.
directed, editing,
Mhm.
photography, even if it wasn't photography. I don't know if they have a videography course.
They do.
Okay. So I did not take that when I was here,
Fair.
but I did a photography course.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of the journalism ethics, things like
Yeah.
that. And then also I was a poli-sci minor. So
Okay.
I took some of those because I knew I was interested in politics and that could potentially blend some over with
Yeah.
coverage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, I've actually said this to the department, not department head, well, the department head and the head of the liberal arts school a matter of weeks ago. I had lunch with them and I had said, like, no disrespect at all to the JMC department.
Yeah.
It's great. But the CTV student media realm was arguably even more beneficial for me
Yeah.
because I was able to take what I learned, but I was able to put it to practice.
Totally.
Whereas with the classroom, you're learning stuff, you're learning types of things to do, the ethics behind it, how to edit. But then after that, you could go home and never use it.
Yeah.
Whereas student media forced me to go out there and interview real people,
Yeah.
to be on a deadline, things like that. So it was this perfect blend of being able to mix and match what I got from my classes
Yeah.
with the real world practical use of it.
Yeah, kind of the show and what you know kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, exactly.
I definitely feel that because like classes now that I'm taking, I'm like, oh, these are really cool, but like, what are some other ways I can apply it besides just
Mhm.
doing an assignment and getting a grade for it?
Yeah, yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that's why I really like student media, because it's just like I'm forcing myself to
Yeah.
like meet all these people and have real world like corporate, because 5003 is technically under the corporate aspect of it,
Yeah.
and so it's just different to like have the knowledge versus like
Of course.
physically applying it.
And one thing you added there that I think is also interesting, what you said, is the different entities within student media. And you had asked me as well, like, did I ever blend through them too? And I think you'll notice that there's a lot of students within student media and the journalism department who are mix and matching what they're doing.
Multi-department, yeah.
Exactly. And I'll be first to admit, I didn't do that until my junior going into senior year.
Yeah.
I was just CTV,
CTV.
for 3 years. I walked my first week on campus. I was moving in Corbett Hall, and coincidentally, a CTV crew happened to be in there doing a move-in day story. And they just happened to ask me for an interview. I was like, well, this is actually what I want to do. So it's kind of destiny.
Yeah.
But anyway, I stuck with that from freshman year all the way to junior year. And then I don't know if they still do it, but at the time, student media did like we'll hire 5 or 6 of you guys to work this summer, but you have to do all the media.
Oh, yeah. So certain departments, like the Collegian, like, and ad marketing sales, like they don't work super hard over the summer, but like CTV, and then like 5003 have like clients and work over the summer, but we don't like do all the apartments. We just focus on our department. But yeah, they still do the summer work.
It was great because it gave me the opportunity not just to do like shooting video and stuff, but I was also DJing and I was writing up web articles. So that's actually where I got my multi-skilled approach just beyond shooting and reporting. It also gave me DJing. It taught me how to write web copy.
Yeah.
I remember a quick story. I remember reaching out to my former high school teacher and being like, how do I write web copy? Like I had always done TV stories and shot stuff, but I didn't know like AP style and stuff like that. And so that junior going into senior year at student media also helped with that.
That's funny. How did you find your way back to CTV as an advisor?
Yeah, that was actually really cool. I mean, I'm glad that it happened too. Like I told you, I've been working here for, at the time, it was 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to kind of give back to the students here on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Pooler, who is a professor here at the university, she would always have me come back and I would speak once a semester to
Nice.
her TV broadcast students.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that, but I always wanted to do more.
Yeah.
And you can ask her, I would always bring business cards and I will never tell people, hey, come talk to me afterward. But throughout my entire little
Yeah.
class speech I would always talk about the importance of networking.
Yeah.
And I would never say, so come talk to me afterward. I would wait to see if students would come and talk to me.
Yeah. Who would reach out kind
Exactly.
of thing. Yeah.
And there would be times where not a soul would come
Yeah.
up to me afterwards. So I was like, all right, they don't care. But then there would be some who would come up, like one or two a class, and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like, do you mind if I get your business card, something like that?
Yeah.
And then I would start mentoring them.
Mhm.
I'd be like, let's stay in contact, send me your videos, and they would do it. And so I think that somehow got back to staff here at CSU that I
Mhm.
was doing that. And CTV, the student media people, reached out to me randomly and were like,
Yeah.
hey, would you want to be advisor? And I was like, I mean, that'd be really cool. And I was
Yeah.
going to do it. You can put this out there, but don't tell them, I thought it was going to be for free. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, like,
I'll
I'll do
do
it
it
for
for
free. And then
free.
suddenly like, and here's your pay. And I was like, oh, I'm like,
I get
all right,
money.
yeah, exactly. But I love doing it. I loved doing it when I wasn't getting paid, and it's
Yeah.
even greater now that I have more students that I get to work with.
Yeah. I think it's cool because a lot of the advisors are alumni. And I
Yeah.
think that's like what's even cooler.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, you did go out there and you did do
Yeah.
all these things, but like you also went to CSU, so you know all the
Yeah.
classes and the professors and like, Greg Left and
Yeah.
Steve
Yeah,
and like all
exactly.
those people.
Mhm.
And so it's just cool that like there's still that connection outside
Yeah.
of like, oh, well, you worked in the industry that I want. So
Yeah.
how can I network you to my fullest ability?
And
Like,
what's crazy is that, like you just mentioned, like Greg and Steve and the
Yeah.
likes of those people who I feel like we're all staying the same age.
Mhm.
But then we turn around and I talk with some of the students. They're like, I was born in 2003. And I'm like,
yeah.
that's where I feel old.
Yeah, like
But-
I'm 04.
oh my gosh, that's crazy. Good for you. That's crazy.
That's so funny. I know, because I intern for this PR company right now, and she was a CSU alum, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I graduated, and I can't remember. I think it was like 95."
Yeah.
And so she was like, "And you were born in what year?" And I was like,
Yeah.
2004. And she's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"Okay."
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
crazy. And this is like the first time in my life, and I won't get on a tangent on this, but this is the first time in my life where I finally hit that page of like, I feel like I'm getting old.
Yeah.
But the one thing that gives me hope is that some of my students, and I won't use their names, some of my students will still be like, let's go get a beer after. So I'm like, the fact that you think I'm cool enough to still
So
have a beer
get
with,
a beer.
I'm still halfway young. I'll
Yeah.
take it.
So we're cool. We're in the cool kids
Yeah,
club. That's
exactly.
that's all that matters. Totally fair. For like upcoming students who are graduating, like obviously like network. What are some other ways that they should like get their foot in the door, get their
Mhm.
name out there? Because like I didn't discover student media until I met a friend through it, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of networking in a way. But like, what are some ways that like maybe like CSU or like even students themselves can kind of get their foot in the door
Yeah.
to the journalism world?
So I think one thing that everybody has going for them right now that wasn't as prevalent when I was graduating 12 years ago was that social media has become
Mhm.
such a big resource for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When I was here in college, I remember people being like, we're getting on Instagram. I'm like, Instagram, that sounds stupid. And I was like, I'm not going to get on that. Like, and
Yeah.
then now we know it's like one of the most used
Yeah.
social media platforms. And so because of that, now that so many people are on social media, there's potentially, if you work hard enough at it, more eyeballs on that product than
Mhm.
there would be on what you're putting together at CTV. When I was here, it was like, oh, I would try and get something from CTV on channel 11 and then maybe get it on YouTube and maybe get a few clicks.
Mhm.
Whereas now students have the ability from their bedroom to edit together a quick story they shot real quick and put it
Yeah.
out there. And that could end up in a news director's feed real easily.
Mhm.
So I think using social media strategically and efficiently is important. And that is not just something that I think would be great for students, but it's also something we're being told at the professional level.
Yeah.
To where CBS, who I work directly for, CBS, the company, there's like affiliates, but I work for CBS
Yeah.
News. They have hired people to come
Mhm.
in and be like, hey, you need to get more of a presence on social
You're
media.
the social media person.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I think that is one way that students can further push themselves out there is also not just your traditional horizontal video, which I don't want to call myself an expert, but like that's what I thrive at is like the horizontal
yeah.
TV news cut edited video. But now there is this desire from younger generations, which is the ad dollars are shifting toward that.
Yeah.
To have these vertical videos that fit on a phone, and they're
Yeah.
quicker, they're faster paced, they're more interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a shift toward the demographic and use that to your advantage.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who will like, even like podcasts like this, they'll take it and make it vertical and then clip it like 30 seconds and then post it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how I've discovered some of my
Yep.
favorite podcasts, because it's just like, oh, well, this 30-second clip got me intrigued. Like now it's so different.
And what you just said is interesting, that you discovered some of your favorite podcasts from social media short clips. That's exactly what I'm saying about this, is some of these students could be getting discovered by news directors based off of social media short clips.
Yeah. I think, like, I know we talked about like taking media ethics classes, but like, and especially now that journalism isn't just news and newspapers, it's social media and photo and video. Like, why is it important for journalists in all occupations to kind of stay true to what they learned and the ethics that they learned here and through student media versus like going out in the world and just doing whatever?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, is that it's this interesting dynamic we're having, especially in this creation of the idea of fake news, is that the eye to detail is actually greater than it's ever been. But at the same time, we're in this weird world where not only do people want facts more, but then also they're more likely to turn away their eye from facts, depending on who they are in certain situations. So anyway, yeah, I think it's just definitely an interesting thing to try and apply your ethics and know that the level of criticism is at an all-time high right now, which is a good thing to an extent. But there are some people out there who call themselves journalists, who are social media influencers, who are just trying to get clicks, and they will do the most sensational thing. And I think there is this level of difference between an influencer and somebody who's actually been trained. And for example, there could be I'm making up a hypothetical. There could be a case where somebody was a victim of a sexual assault, let's say. Yeah. And an influencer might get out there and be like, this is the house where the sexual assault allegedly happened to a 7-year-old kid. Well, you would never see someone from CBS doing that, because that identifies the kid. Even though you didn't say their name, by
you're
saying
not
this is the
trying
house
to do
and
that. Yeah.
the kid is this age. And that's not being taught to influencers. That's not being taught to every day go out there and just try it. So I think that's where it's like more important than ever, is that when there's more people doing this idea of journalism, there is a differentiator on who could actually be relied upon and to ethically do it as well.
Absolutely. Going back to your CSU days, kind of like looking back at all the work you did with CTV, classwork and stuff, what do you think is like the one piece of work or skill that you learned or had that kind of sealed the deal for your first job in Fayetteville? Like, what would you say, like, kind of, how do you think that work back then impacted the work you do now?
Yeah, I would say the ability to work under a deadline. And
Totally.
It was funny because, and I convey this to the students now that are in student media, but I remember, man, I only get a week to turn this story. Like, that's crazy. Because like in the journalism school, like, oh, this project's due in 3 weeks or whatever. And then for student media to turn around and be like, this is due next Wednesday. Yeah. I remember that being like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then you turn around and you tell your bosses who you're applying for a job. And they were like, that's great. And I swear on my life, this is true. They're like, that's great that you can do that, because some people applying can't do that in a month. Yeah. We need you to do 2 stories a day. Yeah. And so you get there and you get thrown into this. You have one story. My first job, I'd show up at 1:30. The meeting would end by 2:15. And then I had to have one package on air by 5 and 6, and then drive to a completely different city or county sometimes, and start shooting by 7 o'clock. Your second story, that's on air by 9 and 10. Yeah. So anyway, it was still trial by fire at first, but at least I had been prepared here for the idea of turning stories on a deadline.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
For upcoming students like myself or other seniors who like don't have a job lined up after graduation or in the process of searching for looking and securing a job, what advice would you say to them after doing that process yourself?
So other than networking, because I beat that home with all the students at student media, I would say continue to try and seek out opportunities to do the work in the meantime. And so part of that is even if your platform has 3 viewers, it's your mom and your grandma and your grandpa,
Mhm.
still go out there. If you see a breaking news thing happening on the side of the road, pull over,
Yeah.
get video of it, ask what's going on, try and get an interview, be
Yeah.
inquisitive. Start flexing those muscles, start getting
Mhm.
those gears turning. Don't let them just sit there and rust and contain dust.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to rhyme there. But like don't let that happen, because then suddenly when you finally get the call or when you finally get the job hired, and then you're in this culture shock of, oh wait, like I haven't done this
Yeah.
in months.
Yeah.
So keep curious, and
Yeah.
also let that curiosity turn into producing something would
Mhm.
be a tip. And then also don't be scared to ask.
Mhm.
So even if you don't have the connection, even if you don't have the network that has an in at that one station that's hiring,
Mhm.
feel free to just reach out and say, hey, I saw this online, this posting.
Mhm.
I'm interested in it. Obviously, in today's day and age, it's easy to get a face-to-face
Yeah.
via a screen
Yeah.
conversation with someone.
Mhm.
Ask them, send them an email, say, hey, can I get 10 minutes of your time
Yeah.
to talk about this? And most people will be willing to say, at least even if it's just for advice, yes. And if it's for a job opportunity, they might be like, hey, I don't, blah, blah, blah. And then in that time, you can say, well, here's my stuff. Just feel free to look at it.
Yeah.
So don't be scared to ask, because that's one thing that I credit my mom for when I was a little kid. If I wanted something, she's like, all right, well, then go ask for it. Like,
Yeah.
don't ask me for it. Go ask the person for
Like,
it.
worst thing they could say is no.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that applies to all these jobs and opportunities, and
Yeah.
even the interviews that you end up getting. Some of the craziest and best interviews I've ever had are people who I was like, they would never talk, but I'm just going to ask. And then they say
Totally.
yes.
Okay, final question.
Yeah.
Looking beyond the A,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to your student self that would have helped you throughout your time in college, especially now that you've been in the industry for as long as you have?
Yeah. I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for or not,
It's
but
okay.
the first thing that came to mind was actually slow down and enjoy the moment,
Yeah.
because I pressed myself through college.
Yeah.
I did CTV multiple nights a week.
Yeah.
I signed up for manager opportunities right away. I was an anchor my freshman year. Like I was taking on as much responsibility as I could, because
Totally.
like, this is what I'm here for.
Mhm.
And while that was great and it did set me up in part for success, I do look back at it and I hear some of these, some of my students here or some of my peers that have been graduated for years, and I've been like, oh man, like remember we would just do all these things on all these nights and all that
Yeah,
type of stuff.
yeah.
And I'm like, actually, no, I missed that. I was
Yeah.
so focused on editing this story or whatever. So I think there's a happy medium
Totally.
of embracing the study and embracing the opportunity you have here to grow as a incoming professional, and then also absorbing the college experience.
Yeah.
And some of that goes back to starting my first job 10 days after work. Graduation. I actually kind of regret that. There's people I know who went and traveled for a month.
Totally.
Or they took the summer off.
Totally.
Ultimately, did it set me up to get my job here in Denver, which is a very big market, when I was only 23? Yes. So like it has trade-offs.
Yeah, you're
Yeah. But
checks and
eventually,
balances.
exactly. But eventually my peers who also went and traveled and stuff like that, they eventually made it too.
Yeah.
So you're only young once. And so I would say embrace the moment.
Yeah.
Don't get too caught up in your studies. Prioritize them, but also know there is life outside of studying.
I don't think that was like a bad answer at all. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it's okay. Like you'll find one." Like I like that too, because like I said, like I work 3 jobs. Like it's just like I like sometimes you just need the money, but also like I would work 8 hours, but then someone would be like, "You want to go out?" I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like I can't like
do it.
How there's not going to be another time where I go to class like a little hungover or something.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like I'm still gonna get things done, but it doesn't mean that you can't have fun in the process.
Yeah. And even to that, I think I would add to exactly what you were just saying is that, and these are people who now have publicly announced their position, so I don't mind sharing it. But there are, I don't know if you know them, but there's Leah Kakowski and then there's also Zoe Weir.
Yeah.
And both individuals, they earned their jobs.
Yeah.
Going back to what I was talking about, networking. And this comes back to enjoying the moment, I promise you. They asked to shadow me. They both coincidentally, in their own 1 year apart from each other, were interested in in-game hosting. Both of them I introduced just for networking. Like, hey, come talk to Carrie Ann Buren from Tronky Sports and Entertainment. Yeah. And that introduction was enough to land Leah the job as the Denver Nuggets in-game host.
Yes.
And Zoe just started as the Rapids in-game host. And it was all
Yes.
because, and I'm not taking credit, it was
Yeah.
because they knew me and I knew the person
Yeah.
who hires that.
The network.
And both of them, you can interview them on your own.
Yeah.
But both of them have told me before about like, oh, we didn't know if this is what we want to do full time, but
Yeah.
it's such a great opportunity. I think that's also something as well, is that I came out of college saying I need to be working on TV at a news station Monday through Friday on the 10 o'clock news. Like that's what I have to do.
This is what I want.
And there's other career paths. I mean, look at them. They're working a couple games a week. It's not full-time jobs. They're hustling in one job and doing that on the side, and they can tell you their own stories beyond that. But that's a once in a lifetime opportunity to say you were the in-game host for a professional basketball team.
Yeah, like that's so cool.
Yeah. See some of these opportunities would be one of my other tips, is that just because it's not what you envisioned, or maybe what your classmate ended up getting as their first job, doesn't mean that it's not something that when you're 50 years old, you can look back and be like, that was badass that I did that.
Yeah, like
that was
it
pretty
was
cool.
that I did that for them.
Yeah.
I even went to a Nuggets game and I saw her and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's so great. And once again, that those stories are perfect of, they knew the right people.
Yeah.
They asked, can you introduce? They proved that they were qualified for the jobs. They worked hard for it. They got the positions. And now they're in this opportunity where they're young. They're doing something most people can never say they've done, speaking in front of 20,000 people in a live event any given night. And then when they decide to move on to their next opportunity, they do. Everybody's on their own trajectory.
Totally. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
No, this is exciting.
Yeah.